What is going on, guys? This is the Value Podcast where valuable people attract people of value. I am Jamel Jackson, your relationship mechanic. I focus on repairing, evaluating, and giving you the tools you need to maintain healthy relationships. This particular season of this podcast is Jamel. I Have Questions, where I bring my guest on and they ask me a few questions centered around relationships and answers are given. Today I have Mrs. I Am Arnesjah. I'm gonna try to do this, y'all. I try to do it on one of my other podcasts because sometimes I don't like to introduce the people because I mess it up. But we have I Am Arnesjah, one of the world's greatest authors, a mighty woman of God. She actually even has a clothing line, or not a clothing line, but it's a dope hoodie, it's a dope shirt, it's a dope phrase. It's called I Am Chosen. She impacts lives all over the world. She is a strategist, a brand strategist, a relationship strategist, a mind strategist. Well, let me not say it. See, I messed it up.
No.
I tried, y'all. Y'all could hit me in the head for introduction. Arnesjah, who are you? What do you do?
Okay.
I-
I like how you added Mrs. on there. Okay. Speak prophetically for me. Okay. But no, I am Arnesjah and I am an author strategist. I help authors to write, self-publish, and
Yeah.
monetize nonfiction books. That's what I do, and I enjoy it.
Okay. See, nobody can introduce themselves better than the person themselves. You know what I mean? Some people have this, a bio that's written out and then they read it, but I like the organic introductions. So please forgive me. I got the author right and I got the strategist right.
Yes, you
And
do.
maybe relationship might be coming.
That-
But that's why we're here today to ask these questions centered around relationships. Arnesjah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So, of course, when you're single, you're dating and you want to find the one for you that's right for you. So, I've been in that phase of my life. And so I just have questions. And I'm like, oh, let's hit the relationship mechanic. So, I
Ooh.
guess the first thing is dealing with let's say that when a woman is dating and she establishes that she wants to abstain from sex until marriage, what signs should she notice within a man that reveals that he is not respecting her decision?
So you're dating this person. Let
Mhm,
me just write, excuse me. You're dating this person and the woman wants to abstain from sex.
mhm.
And what signs should she look for to see if this person is crossing boundaries, you should say?
Basically, yeah.
I believe some of these boundaries, I mean, some of these, to see that the person is crossing the boundaries, some of them may be just obvious sometimes because, I mean, there may be certain things that you guys are doing. And let's just say, because sex is a big term, like, it's not like it's a kiss, and a kiss can lead to that. It depends on how long that kiss is. If the person kisses you and then grabs you and then feels you, I think those are clear signs right there. Like, oh, hold on a second, you about to go cross the boundary that I said that I'm not doing. That's the sign right there. Then it may not even be touch. It may be in the language. You may be having a conversation and this person may be throwing certain words out there that you're like, hold on a second, that was a little too far. That what you just said right there kind of crossed the boundary, or you went a little above and beyond. I think we should. I think if I'm a woman, I would take heed to that. If that's one of your standards that you're setting, that we're not having sex, I don't want to engage in sex. What signs am I looking for? Okay, maybe it's not like I said. It may not be physical. It may be verbal, where the person says something and you like, okay, I caught that right there. And not to X them out, but if they continue to make these comments, then you might be like, okay, I can see that they're clearly not trying to adhere to my boundaries and they keep crossing it by these verbal comments that they're making or physical touches that they keep doing. And I might have to like just pull myself away from this person. But I would definitely tell them. I mean, maybe they won't know. And then they make a comment and they don't know. And then you say something like, hey, I did tell you that I'm not trying to do this, that, and the third. Can you please abstain from those comments? But if they continue to do it, then you can see clearly that what they're after and what they're out for.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. And when it comes to being that, let's say that is happening, that's happening, all the signs are showing. Should she continue on? Is the thing.
See, that
Even if
would be
you're gonna love it, because it's like you're like, oh, I really want to be with this person, but she may be just, I don't want to say hypnotized. Like more so in that like euphoria stage, like, oh, he'll try or it'll work out. Like, should she continue on?
that would be up to that person. Real talk, because if those are standards that you set, and those standards and those boundaries and margins that you set, and they keep being crossed, then you would have to it's a difficult, well, for some people it's not a difficult decision, and I don't want to say for everybody it's an easy decision, because some people it's not easy. There may be women listening or viewing this and say, man, look, I'm just gonna cut it off. Well, that's easy for you to do. Some women it may not be that easy, but I would say you're gonna have to make the decision. It may be difficult for some, because it's like, oh man, I'm about to lose this person that I think is so great. They're so admirable. They got all the other things in the package, but that one area just keeps setting me off, and that's my standard, and that's my core value. Oh, it's gonna hurt to cut them off. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be like, oh. But if that's your standard and you don't want to you don't want to compromise, then you're gonna have to make that decision.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Or I mean, if you sit down and talk to the person and they're honestly not trying to change at all, because maybe you might have strikes. I don't know, some people might be like, okay, that's one time, that's two times, that's three times, I'm done. But maybe you might have strikes and you'd be like, the second time you're like, look, let's talk about this. I really like you, I really love you, I'm really trying to engage with you, I'm really trying, and I understand how you feel and what you want, but this is what I want. And then you have that conversation, and maybe the person is still not listening to how you're communicating, and you're going to have to make a decision.
Definitely.
And the letting go part that's the difficult part sometimes.
Got you. Got you. Got you.
But
Yeah.
trust me, there's somebody else that's waiting. Somebody's waiting to come up to your standards. Whoever that woman is listening or viewing this, somebody's waiting to come to your standards.
Got you. What about if, like, let's say a woman's devoted, has a devoted relationship with God? Um, should she be the one to lead a man to Christ? Let's say, she's kind of in this dating relationship and the guy is not really, he says he's saved, but he's not saved. But she sees something in him where, oh, this can work out. Should she be the one to lead him to Christ? Or should she
Now,
just take him for who he is?
when you say lead him to Christ, is he saved or is he not saved?
Okay, there's levels to being saved. So there's the person who's been baptized as a kid, but they growing up, adulthood, they haven't been to church in a minute, because a lot of people say they're saved, but they don't have a relationship with like a devoted relationship with God. Like they're constantly going to church, serving, living by biblical standards. They're in this phase where they're just like, I kind of been in the world, I'm just gonna stay here, you know. But she has a devoted relationship with God, going to church, serving, reading the Bible, building her relationship with God intentionally. But he's not in that phase. He's just like, I guess, he's in this phase where he hasn't been to church in forever. He's not even mentioning, he doesn't even own a Bible, but yet he says he's saved. Should she be the one to lead him to that, to that place where there's devotion with God?
Are you saying, okay, so it sounds like lead him back home?
Lead him back home.
Like, okay, lead him back home. I believe she can play a part. I don't believe that should become that woman, and I want to say man, but like specifically since we're talking about women, I don't believe that should become that woman's obligation. I believe she can play a part and God can utilize her to shed his light upon the situation. And if that man's taking heed and paying attention, it can be a tool used to lead him back to Christ. But I don't believe that woman should make that her obligation, because then you could become frustrated, and it can easily lead to, especially if you care for this person and you love him and you want a relationship with him, it could become, you can start to become manipulative, unaware that you're being manipulative and trying to lead him to a place that you want him to be, so you can have this man be a Christ man or a godly man,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not good. The
Mm-hmm.
man has to be willing. Now, if he's willing and he's looking at you and viewing your life as a light, and he starts to draw closer to the God in you, and you're pointing him to Christ, then that's a different scenario. But I wouldn't make that my obligation. Like, man, you know what? I think next week what I'm going to do is set up this conversation and then somehow slide devotion in there. You know, not saying
Mhm.
that you can't do that, but if some at some point in that relationship, if this man isn't piquing interest into this light and this
Mhm.
life that you live, then I would just take I would take heed to that and see, okay, I'm not gonna force this person, because if you start forcing it, and it could be a slow force and it's still manipulation though. You know, I'm not saying if you do it, have a hand an invite out like, hey, I'm going to service next week. Would you like to come? That's not like a manipulative tool. That's just you asking. And if the person says, you know what, yeah, I would love to go, then that's a sign right there that they're trying to come forth and they're trying to, and your light is shining on them, and they're like, hey, let me go. You know, but it's not like every day I'm like, hey, did you read Corinthians, the scripture I sent you last night?
Mhm.
Person like, whoa, hold on, no, I didn't read it. Then you're like, let me send them another one around 3 p.m. Boom, boom, boom. Did you read that Roman scripture? Nah. Because now it's starting to become a slow manipulative tool to get them to come into you.
I like that. That's true. That's true. Especially that manipulation.
Yeah.
Um, and as a female, we tend to go that direction, that route, because that's like if we have a when we have a strong relationship with God, we desire a husband. It's really hard to find that nowadays. Just say it. It's hard to find someone who is devoted. And so when they find someone, oh, he has all the some of the qualities on the list, but the main thing that's missing is that relationship with God.
Hmm.
And so it can turn into, like you said, manipulation. It can turn into for the woman who really does want to be with this guy. It can be she will make it an obligation. So definitely, I agree with you in that area.
Yeah, and women have power, you know, and hopefully that power is not abused. You think about Jezebel in the Bible, she had a lot of power, to the point that she influenced a lot of people, and even influenced her husband at one point to kill prophets. You know, I'm not saying that all women are that extreme, but it's a spirit. It's not the actual person. So for anybody listening to this or viewing this, I'm not talking about you. And if you are a little agitated right now, that means the spirit inside of you is being agitated and convicted by what I'm saying. I'm not talking about you per se as a person, but that's a spirit, and that spirit can get on men too. Men
Mhm.
can be manipulative in this situation, but like I said, we're specifically talking about how a woman may utilize her beauty or even her intelligence, whatever attribute, you can use those characteristics to influence a man or manipulate a man to do something that he may not want to do. Now, the danger of that is, because say he does get involved in your spiritual walk, and he never really wanted to be there, it's gonna come out because he's not really in agreement.
Right.
He's not really in agreement. So yeah, I mean, like I said, but once again, there's nothing wrong with sowing seed. Let me just say that. I like to use that word right there. Seed time harvest. There's nothing wrong with sowing seed, because you
Mhm.
may sow seed and it's on good soil, and it goes into that man's heart, and then God begins to work that thing out. And then he'll pique interest into your desires and say, "Hey, you know what? I was thinking about going to service." You didn't even ask him. He may ask you, "I was thinking about going to service," or I was thinking about taking some time out to go in the park, and me and you just, read up on the word. What do you think about that? And that could be from seed that you sown versus trying to force it.
Mhm.
A farmer, when he plants a seed, he doesn't stand over the seed and force it to come out the ground. I want to use this verse because this ties into this conversation. It was it was Paul. Yeah, it was Paul, and he was a I don't know why my mind just went blank, but it's in the Bible, and he was talking about they were arguing Apollos with some of these leaders, were like, "Hey, who's the greatest? Who's this? Who's that?" And they said one he said one plants, one waters, but God makes it grow. And that's powerful right there. One plants, one water, God makes it grow. You may plant a seed in this man's life that you're around. Somebody else may come along and water it. But he said the most important thing is that God makes it grow. That means we cannot force growth upon anybody, because you're going to end up frustrated and then try to manipulate it. Think about a farmer. Let me go back to that scenario. A farmer plants a seed in the ground. It may water it. He's not standing there like, come on, apple tree, come out of the ground. He's not going to pull it out of the ground, because if he tries to pull it out of the ground and manipulate it and pull it out the ground, he's going to damage the harvest. He's going to damage that plant, and then there's no fruit. So the same scenario applies to our relationships. We can't force anything. We can plant seed. You may be watering. Somebody else might plant a seed in his life while he's going to work. And then you may have a conversation with him that puts water on it. But the main important thing, like Paul said, is that God makes it grow. We don't make anybody grow. We don't. As soon as we try to make people grow, it's headed for disaster. Now we can witness all three at once sometime. We may, that's what we see, the miracle right there. Like, oh, snap. He just came to the light, just right there. I didn't,
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense. The seeds and planting. And my other thing is this too. What if, because we've heard of this list before, like the list,
Mm.
right? So a
Uh-huh.
lot of times we have a list that's written out. We think about what we want in a man, what we see in our future, and all that stuff. So we have this list. Now, what if we meet somebody? Actually, I'm gonna go here because oftentimes what I've heard, what influenced me to actually make a list is that I've heard a lot of success stories out of the men's have out of someone in a relationship. He just matched everything on the list. So that stands out to me is, oh, okay. So whenever I find my man, he's gonna have all the qualities on the list, right? What how do we go about it if we meet somebody who may not have all the qualities on the list, but they have the potential to grow into it?
That's a valid question. Here's my thing. Even with the list scenario, I know there's some leaders that I know that say, scratch the list, rip up the list. I believe, yes, tear up the list if it's like so detailed that it's like if none of these things, if you write a list and in your mind it's so concrete that it's like God can't adjust this at all. If this person isn't 5'9", got ribs, got big calves, and knows how to swim fast in the beach, and knows how to shoot hoops, and speaks in all these like concrete things in your heart and your mind, then you might need to tear up that list. Because here's the thing, I'm gonna use my own story and I'm gonna answer this question. I subconsciously, not even subconsciously, I was consciously making a list. Like, you know what, God, when I meet the woman, I want her to be like this. I want her to be like this. And then I started to, as I'm just going through life, I'm looking with my list in my mind, like, okay, nah, nah. And one day I was in the back of the car and the driver's driving and I'm sitting there thinking about, we're talking about my list. And in the midst of me talking about it, God just dealt me. He said, Jamel, what about you? He said, what if somebody's out there checking off a list and they're looking at you saying, nah. And he said, what about your qualities that aren't high standard? And I was like, wow. And right then and there, destroyed. Now, here's the thing. The concrete list in my mind was destroyed. I still had a list that I wrote down in the house. It was like, I wanted to be a God-fearing woman. I wanted to it was just certain attributes that I had listed. It wasn't nothing that was concrete though. At any moment, if God wanted to shift it, had things like an age bracket and stuff like that. However, I still left room for God to do whatever He wanted to do and send me whoever He wanted to send me. Because sometimes the person may not fit your list, even in terms of the godly portion. I always say I'd rather have a woman that's willing, weak and willing, and to move in the strength of God than to move in her own strength. This word just came to my mind, pliable. A lot of people aren't pliable. So you can meet an amazing person that doesn't have all the characteristics, or they may not have all of them, but some of the ones that you like say you like, man, I want a guy that's going to be real fit. He may not be real fit, but he's pliable. He's
Mhm.
willing to say, you know what? I'm not that fit, but hey, babe, you exercise a lot. I'll go to the gym with you all the time. And now he becomes this fit guy. Because he could take trash and turn it into treasure.
Mhm.
A lot of women say they got this concrete list in their mind. No, if he's not like this, he's not like this. And they end up doing away with this guy who doesn't look like their concrete list. And they pick something from their list. And once again, he has the attributes and the external things, but the internal portion of him doesn't even know how to cater to your soul. But you got your external view. And the one that was trash, God turns to treasure. And now it's like, oh my God, is that Ronnie from the third grade? Or is that Jim that used to work at Best Buy? But somebody picked them up and they got an amazing man on their hand now. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But in all of that, it's using discernment, it's using discretion, and just, not choosing people just based off of external features. And we do that in our society we live in with so much social media. Man, there's so many filters on people. They be looking like they in the morgue, man.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
serious. Like you don't know what you're dealing with. I would judge from the internal aspect. Shoot, some people you could push them in the pool, they might disappear.
They might disappear.
You don't know what you got. I'm talking about men and women, man. Like, what is that? Is that your real chest, bro? Like, what's going on?
Filter.
Listen, they have people. They got stuff out here where guys can have fake built bodies now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm not knocking people who are doing that, but to each his own. But I'm just saying when we're choosing, choose more internally than externally.
Yeah, because that internal is very important. There's a scripture that says that a good tree is produced from the good that's in their heart, and an evil tree is produced from the evil that's in the heart. And that internal feature, that's what God looks at too. And so if God is
Hmm.
trying, I feel like when God is trying to align us with whoever it is that he wants us to be in alignment with, like God will make it very clear. And then he'll also make it very clear when we're not in alignment, you know,
Hmm.
um, because he'll begin to show those red flags.
Yeah. And let me say this too. And for people that are viewing this and are listening, I'm not saying that the external part does not matter. I just want to clarify that because some people be like, no, you still gotta, I want a woman or a man that looks, yeah. I'm not excluding the external, just alleviating it out the equation. No. But that shouldn't become the determining factor. That can't be like, oh, you know what? Her hair isn't long like this, so there's no way I'm getting with her. No, I mean, how does she treat? How's her mannerisms? How does she cater, man? Don't just make that determining factor. For some it is, and they get what they get.
Yeah.
Because although that body's like that, that body's eventually to look, people age, bro. People age. They about to get sick. I don't know, but let's leave that alone. I'm gonna leave that alone.
I mean, go ahead and tap there because I feel like we do look at external a lot, but we can't of course it matters, but at the end of the day, that internal is what matters too. Because when you turn
Yeah,
50, 60 and all that stuff go away, then what? You still love them?
it's not, and it's not even now. It's not even so much age because anything could happen.
Mm-hmm.
If people watch the podcast I did with my bro Jeremy, he pointed out a fact about him and his wife, but anything could happen. Let's just say that amazing woman with that bad body that you're with, bro, that she gets into there's an ailment that hits her body and she
Mm-hmm.
starts losing weight or something happens. Anything could happen, a tragic accident, and something happens, and now she doesn't look as presentable as she did when you met her and you chose her based on that. Now your mind begins to think, man, I need another one. But if it's an
Mm-hmm.
internal connection. Let me say that this. Oh man, God is dope. Because I was meditating on what did He want me to say. I want people to notice when they're listening and viewing that I'm not just trying to conjure up information. I really be trusting God to give me wisdom to answer how He desires this thing to be wisdom. I mean, answer. And he took me back to Genesis. In the beginning, he said, and this is why a man leaves his mother and a woman leaves her father, and they combine. He said, then they're united. It didn't say as one, it said into one. And I said, wow. So this ties into what we're talking about right now. And the word that came to me was sync. So let me just read this definition. It says sync. It's short for synchronize, is a verb for making things work together. Almost like when people lip sync, you are moving your mouth to exactly match someone else's word. So synchronize. In that moment, when it's internal versus external, the two become synchronized. So therefore, if something occurs, it's not so you're not going to be you're not going to be so fast to throw somebody away. You have become synchronized. You're into this person. You guys have become in sync. It's like, no, my babe, her features may not be how it was when I met her because I didn't choose her based off that. I chose her based off these internal things more than the external. So no, I'm not throwing you away, babe. I know you got that element. I know you lost some weight. Your verbiage and your language and your vocabulary changes to no, we gonna get better, babe. We gonna get better. Not we gonna get better because I'm in this with you now. Versus if it's external, it's like, man, In your mind, you're like, man, I hope she get better. I hope she get better. No, it's I hope we get better when it's in sync.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, but that's pretty much all I'm wondering. And I thank you for answering those questions.
Oh, no problem, man. Listen, that's
Yeah,
what we're here for. The relationship mechanic, man. If anybody was listening and viewing this, there were tools given just now. There
absolutely.
were there were tools given. I said I'm repairing, evaluating, and giving you the tools you need. So there were tools given. So I hope somebody took notes. I hope somebody was really listening and taking heed to this and really be in sync with the person that you're meeting, a person that you're dating. Think about being in sync with them versus just being like, oh, I like her external features and I like his external features. How can you tap into that internal portion of them? And one of the ways to tapping in there is really being a good listener. Listen to what that person is saying, because sometimes when people are talking, they're talking from their heart. You can hear their heart through their mouth. So listen very intently.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, by the way, what are some, since you tapped into that, what are some things to take note of when it comes to what if someone does want to what is it called? Improve the quality of their relationship. Let's say they are taking heed to what we just mentioned or what was just mentioned. What are some things that they can do to improve their relationship? Because perhaps they were looking at the external features and are, they were second guessing if they should be with a good person. Even though they're a good person, they're just like, he doesn't have all those qualities like I want. But what if it's something that God wants for them? What if it's something that could benefit them in the future and benefit them both as a whole? What are some things that they can do to improve their relationship and have a better perspective when it comes to looking at those internal features?
Okay, so looking at the internal features,
Yeah,
you know what? This image just came to my head, and I believe it's just for a reason. So I'm gonna say it. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Really, really take a deep look at yourself externally and internally. Look at you. Let's just leave the other person out the picture. Look at you. Because sometimes we're so focused on the other person externally or internally that we forget about us. And I believe when we begin to examine us and get fine tuned with ourselves, then we'll know exactly what to look for in the other person. Because sometimes we don't even really know ourselves. So we're trying to build ourselves based off another person. Stand in the mirror. This is the image I had. And I'm not trying to be graphic when anybody hears this or views this. Stand in the mirror, because I'm going to do this today. I'm not trying to be graphic. Trust me. Stand in the mirror when you get out the shower naked and look at yourself. And really just look at yourself externally and then ask yourself internally, man, like, am I all that I say I am? You know, just really examine yourself. Look at your toes, look at your fingers, look at all your body parts and just look at yourself. You know, you're naked there, vulnerable. It's almost like you can see, your heart in that moment because you're looking in the mirror. You know your mind in that moment. If it's clear, if it's really trustworthy, if you're really moving in honesty, look at your heart, check it. God, check my heart right now. And then I guarantee when you see that other person, you'll start to look at them differently. You'll think about this internal part differently. Because there's some things I'm telling you, if I'm standing in front of the mirror, there's some things that I would desire to have improved. Man, I don't like the way my leg looks like that. And I'm not saying you're looking at yourself and you're like you start to feel shame about yourself. No, I believe everybody's beautifully and wonderfully made exactly how God made them.
mhm.
But here's the thing, if you don't know that about yourself and stand there in that position and know internally that I have a great heart and I have a great body and all of this, then you'll start to look at other people and you want them to be this big thing in your head and you're not even that.
Mhm. That's good.
Yeah, like Mike Jack said, man, look at the man in the mirror. And he wasn't just talking about gender, he was just talking about mankind. He said, I'm talking to the man in the mirror. He
Mhm.
was talking about himself externally and internally. That was a powerful song by Mike, man. Yeah.
Great advice. I like that. I'm gonna do that today. Look in the mirror and just, also love on yourself too, because it's like sometimes we can be overdoing the criticism, and sometimes
Hmm.
we aren't who we are, who we want to be, because we are so self-critical that we forget to love ourselves, because guess what? God is ultimately love.
Hmm.
And one of the things I've learned is that I have been really hard on myself to the point where I'm not improving because I've been hard on myself and I haven't given myself enough love. And
Hmm.
oftentimes when we're not giving ourselves enough love, how can we give love to others? Because guess what? When
Yeah.
we meditate on constantly, it starts to come out into the atmosphere. It starts to manifest. So we're not focusing on how to love who we are or even love others, then it's like it's going to be hard to love others because we're constantly thinking in a different state of mind. And we can't love our partner because we don't even love ourselves. So we can't leave that out of the equation too. Is that love?
Hmm. That
Mhm,
this if this whole conversation could be summed up, even with the questions you asked and the answers I gave, it will go back to looking in the mirror, looking
mhm,
at yourself. Because,
mhm,
like you said, if I don't do a self reflection of what I want and how I look, then I'll start to project this false reality on the man that I'm looking for or the man that I desire. And so when that man comes, it's like you don't even know because you haven't loved yourself enough.
mhm,
Sometime women would choose men looking for that man to love them. What should I say? To love them for the love that they've been missing. And I'm not saying a man shouldn't. A man should be able to love on his woman and fill some of those voided areas, but nothing's more better than meeting this man where you've identified that I love myself. I love my leg that looks like how I love my arm, and I love the way, and I'm not being graphic. I love the way I know my breasts are like this, and I know my butt is like that, and I know my eyes kind of what my teeth are like. I love me though. And then when you meet that man, whatever was voided in you, he just starts to fill that area up. But you already are confident in the love that you have for yourself.
mhm,
So then those standards that you set, those margins that you have, if they're not met, you're okay with having a clear definition in a conversation with that man and saying, you know what, this is not going to work. And you're not going to be as hurt per se because you love yourself and you've
mhm.
identified it like, hey, I love myself. We're not going to work out. Okay, cool. I love me so much. Me going to be okay.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. So, Arnesjah, thank you very much. I appreciate the questions. Do you have anything you want to say to the people? I'm not going to let my guests leave because these are amazing people that I'm talking to. They are world changers. Tell people where they can find you. Outside of the viewing, they have that Instagram on here, but they're listening and they may be like, man, how do I get in touch with this amazing woman? What they got?
Yes, you can get in touch with me, of course, on Instagram, but I'm also on YouTube. I'm on Facebook under I am Arnesjah. That's IAMARNESJAH. And you'll find more information, videos, encouraging words about your identity.
Awesome. Hey, Arnesjah, you have a wonderful day. I thank you again. Go change the world.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.